What we are going to learn in this lecture? In this lecture we'll learn Introduction to Sampling Theory, Basic Principles of Sampling Theory, some important terms associated with sampling, and determination of sample size for a specific precision. First, we'll know some introduction about sampling. There are situations when we would like to know about a vast, infinite universe or population, but some important factors like time, cost, efficiency, vastness of the population make it almost impossible to go for a complete enumeration of all the units constituting the population. Instead, we take recourse to selecting a representative part of the population and infer about the unknown universe on the basis of our knowledge from the known sample. A somewhat clear picture would emerge out if we consider this case. Suppose, for example, let us share the problem faced by Mr. B. Mr. B would like to put a big order for electrical lamps produced by Mr. A's company, Gelran Electricals. But before putting the order, he must know whether the claim made by Mr. A that the lamps of General Electricals last for at least 1500 hours is justified. Miss M is a well-known social activist. Of late, she has noticed that the incidence of a particular disease in her area is on the rise. She claims that 20% of the people in her town have been suffering from the disease. Now, if you see, in both the situations, we are faced with three different types of problems. The first problem is how to draw a representative sample from the population of electrical lamps in the first case and from the population of human beings in her town in the second case. The second problem is to estimate the population parameters, that is, the average life of all the bulbs produced by General Electricals and the proportion of people suffering from the disease in the first and second examples respectively on the basis of sample observations. The third problem relates to decision making, that is there enough evidence, once again on the basis of sample observations, to suggest that the claims made by Mr. A or Miss B are justifiable so that Mr. B can take a decision about buying the lamps from General Electricals in the first case, and some effective steps can be taken in the second example with a view to reducing the outbreak of the disease. We consider test of significance or test of hypothesis before decision making. So sampling is a procedure wherein a fraction of the data is taken from a large set of data and the inference drawn from the sample is extended to whole group. If sampling is found appropriate for a research, the researcher then identifies the target population as precisely as possible and in a way that makes sense in terms of the purpose of study. Puts together a list of the target population from which the sample will be selected. Selects the sample and decide on a sampling technique. Makes an inference about the population. All these four steps are interwoven and cannot be considered isolated from one another. Now we'll learn some basic principles of sample survey. Sample survey is the study of the unknown population on the basis of a proper representative sample drawn from it. How can a part of the universe reveal the characteristics of the unknown universe? The answer to this question lies in the basic principles of sample survey comprising the following components. What are these components? Law of statistical regularity. According to the law of statistical regularity, if a sample of fairly large size is drawn from the population under discussion at random, then on an average the sample would possess the characteristics of that population. Therefore, the sample to be undertaken from the population should be moderately large. In fact, larger the sample size, the better in revealing the identity of the population. The reliability of a statistic in estimating a population characteristics varies as the square root of the sample size. However, it is not always possible to increase the sample size, as it would put an extra burden on the available resource. We make a compromise on the sample size in accordance with some factors like cost, time, efficiency, etc. Apart from the sample size, the sample should be drawn at random from the population, which means that each and every unit of the population should have a pre-assigned probability to belong to the sample. Second is we have principle of inertia. The results derived from a sample according to the principle of inertia of large numbers are likely to be more reliable, accurate and precise as the sample size increases, provided other factors are kept constant. This is a direct consequence of the first principle. Third, we have principle of optimization. The principle of optimization ensures that an optimum level of efficiency at a minimum cost or the maximum efficiency at a given level of cost can be achieved with the selection of an appropriate sampling design. Fourth one, we have principle of validity. The principle of validity states that the sampling design is valid only if it is possible to obtain valid estimates and valid tests about population parameters. Only a probability sampling ensures this validity. Now, we come to some important terms associated in this chapter of sampling. First is population, or we can say universe. It may be defined as the aggregate of all the units under consideration, or you can say entire set of objects or units of observation of one sort or another. All the lamps produced by General Electricals in our previous example in the past, present and future constitute the population. In our second example, all the people living in the town of Miss M forms the population. The number of units belonging to a population is known as population size. If there are 1 lakh people in her town, then the population size to be denoted by N is 1 lakh. A population may be finite or infinite. If a population comprises only a finite number of units, then it is known as a finite population. The population in the second example is obviously finite. If the population contains an infinite or uncountable number of units, then it is known as an infinite population. The population of electrical lamps of General Electricals is infinite. Similarly, the population of stars, the population of mosquitoes in some city, the population of flowers in Mumbai, you can say, the population of insects in Delhi, etc. are all infinite population because you cannot count them. Population may also be regarded as existent or hypothetical. A population consisting of real objects is known as an existent population. The population of the lamps produced by General Electricals and the population of Miss M's town are example of existent populations. A population that exists just hypothetically, like the population of heads when a coin is tossed infinitely, is known as a hypothetical or an imaginary population. Second is we have sample. Subset of a population selected for a particular study representing the population in all its characteristics is called sample. It may be defined as a part of a population so selected with a view to representing the population in all its characteristics. Selection of a proper representative sample is pretty important because statistical inferences about the population are drawn only on the basis of the sample observations. If a sample contains n units, then n is known as sample size. If a sample of 500 electrical lamps is taken from the production process of General Electricals, then n will be equal to 500. The units forming the sample are known as sampling units. In the first example, the sampling unit is electrical lamp, and in our second example, it is a human. The detailed and complete list of all the sampling units is known as a sampling frame. Before drawing sample, it is a must to have an updated sampling frame complete in all respects before the samples are actually drawn. Then we have our next concept as parameter. Characteristic of a population based on all the units of the population. It may be defined like this. Statistical inferences are drawn about population parameters based on the sample observations drawn from that population. In our first example, we were interested about the parameter population mean. If X alpha denotes the alphath member of the population, then population mean mu, which represents the average length of life of all the lamps produced by General Electricals, then it is given by mu is equal to sigma x alpha upon n. Now we'll learn some formulae for calculation. Size of a population is denoted by capital N and size of sample is denoted by small n. Mean of population is denoted by mu and mean of sample is denoted by x bar. Variance of population is denoted by sigma square and variance of sample is denoted by s square. Proportion of population is denoted by pi and proportion of sample is denoted by small p. Then we have, for calculating an attribute, we have small n is equal to capital P Q P square alpha divided by E square. Now let's do a question for practice. We have a question. In measuring reaction time, a psychologist estimated that the standard deviation is 1.08 seconds. What should be the size of the sample in order to be 99% confident that the error of her estimates of mean would not exceed 0.18 seconds? Let's solve this question. Let n be the size of the random sample. As given in the question, we have sigma is equal to 1.08. It is given in the question. Also we have P alpha is equal to 2.58 and error of estimation, that is E, we have 0.18. Now applying our formula, we'll get n is equal to 1.08 multiplied by 2.58 divided by 0.18 to the whole square, and we'll get our n as 240. Now you revise this concept from your study material, practice questions and ask query if any.